All right, good day everybody. So today we are going to do the VARTM lab, and I'm going to take you guys through the step-by-step process of completing it. We'll actually start over here going through our materials first. So we have our free coat, which is a epoxy dissolver, and then we have some acetone. These will both be used as cleaning agents to clean the surfaces before we actually start the lab. Over here we have our plastic, our guiding mesh, and then our actual fiber material that we are going to be producing the sample with. We have our tape measure, which I'll show you guys what this will be for in a little bit. Our actual vacuum coupler, and then we have both resins. We have our resin mixture over here, which is 2 parts resin and 1 part hardener. You guys may end up using another resin or another epoxy, which is 1-to-1, so it'll just be 1 part resin, 1 part hardener. Your TA will confirm with you that day which one you will be using. And then we have our double-sided tape to produce our manufacturing frame. And then we also have a hose which will draw the mixed epoxy through the sample once we turn on the vacuum pumps. Alrighty, so first thing to do would be to clean the surfaces. I've already done that, so we're actually going to skip ahead to building the frame for the vacuumed part of the lab. So I've already cut these pieces out in predetermined sizes for it to be quicker, but we would essentially be cutting all of these pieces, producing a rectangle. We need to make sure that at the corners, both of the double-sided tape actually overlap each other and seal well to ensure a good vacuum seal. And we would do it just like that. Lift one side up, press the other one on top of it, pull back the other paper, and then we can confirm to see that there is a good lay over the two there. We will do the same thing on this side. Once again, just press down, then lift back up and visually inspect that you have a good adhesion between the two tapes there. And then on this side, same thing, lift both sides up, ensure that both are actually placed well on the table, lift the corners up, and then do the same thing on this side. Now, my tape is moved a little bit, so we're actually going to adjust it and make sure that it'll fit perfectly onto this corner. So right there. Now, it's fine if it looks a little bit funky, yours will too. Awesome. All right, so now that we have this laying down, it's not super square, but it'll work for demonstration purposes. Now, since we have everything cut out and ready to go, we can actually start building the lab. But we need to mention that you guys are actually going to be testing 4, 6, and 8 layers. I'm actually just going to use 1 layer of the fiber just for demonstration purposes, but depending on what group is assigned to it, it's going to be 4, 6, and 8 layers, and that'll be just the layers on top of themselves. So it'll be the same process, will be the same. You'll just have more of the fiber material within the actual vacuum sealed area. With that being said, let's start actually building it all. So we're actually going to pull back all of these papers to expose the double-sided tape. We will then place our fiber down in the middle with our mesh over top of it. And now we will also put our vacuum coupler on it, and it needs to be on the actual mesh itself, and it'll be placed this way. And this is where our tape measure will come in. We actually need to place our tape measure. It can either be on top of the plastic or on the table itself. We'll actually put it on top of the table just so you guys can get a better view of it once the epoxy resin is introduced to the fiber. And this is a tapeable tape measure, so this will allow you to see everything without it being moved once you get it all put down. Because our sample is actually a little bit smaller than the 12 inches that the tape actually comes in, I'm actually going to cut it off around the 7.5 inch mark, because our lab won't go, or the epoxy can't actually go any further than that, or actually is already gone past the material itself by then. So we will leave the ruler here, whereas we can see we're going to line up the fiber with the start of the actual tape measure, and then it ends around the 7.5 inch mark. Alrighty, so now we're actually going to install our epoxy tube, and what we need to do that is another piece of double-sided tape. Doesn't matter how big it is, it just needs to be big enough so where you can place it on the hose itself on top here. Then it needs to be wherever your vacuum coupler is, your hose actually needs to be on the opposite side of that. So we will place our hose here, right at the start of the fiber itself. We will make sure that our hose is on top of our guiding mesh to ensure that the epoxy will run up the mesh and into the fiber material itself. We will then place the tube sandwiched between both double-sided tapes, and then really get a firm press down around it to make sure that it actually does adhere well and produce a good seal. We'll then line it all back up. It's okay if it's a little bit off to the side, it should still work perfectly. And now we are ready to actually put our piece of plastic down to seal it all in. This part is a little bit tricky to get straight, but once you get it straight, it should stay. And if you need to keep adjusting it once the plastic's on, that's also okay. So now we will place the plastic on top and stick it to the double-sided tape around the entire perimeter of our assembly here. It's better to start from corner to corner and work your way towards the middle so you don't have any kinks in the plastic itself. To make sure that we don't have any air leaks. Work your way around the entire perimeter until you can see that all of the plastic where it will be sealed is sealed fine. Alrighty, so now that we're here, we're pretty much almost ready to go. We just have a couple of things left. One, we are going to have to puncture a hole here at the top of the coupler just to make sure that once we actually stick our vacuum hose in there, it will pull and it's not just going to be pulling on the plastic itself. And now we're actually going to mix both epoxies. For this part, we got to make sure that we both have goggles and we have gloves on, just because these are chemicals, and they're actually, it's an exothermic process. It will get hot, so you just want to make sure that your skin isn't touching any of it. And also it does off gas a little bit, so you don't want it to irritate your eyes. So you just got to make sure that you have your proper PPE on so we don't have any accidents in our lab. So now we will just mix both materials or both resins together. And just to elaborate on this, this is exothermic, so as you start mixing it, you may feel your cups to warm up. That's perfectly okay. Our working time is actually pretty long here in this case with this lab, so we once you actually get it mixed, which will be at the end of having everything built, there isn't much time after, so you shouldn't have an issue in terms of it getting too hot or hardening on you. And if you do, you can just pour another mixture out and redo it. Just mixing it right now, making sure that it's fully mixed. You can see now that both materials are mixed. They have a little bit of an opaque hue to them, but that's fine. So now I'm just gonna readjust the mesh to make sure that it's all good and straight for when we actually add our vacuum pump. We can see that it's all now straight. Now, here's our vacuum pump hose. We are now gonna insert this hose into this part of the coupler and making sure that it creates that good seal. You'll see that it's fully there. Now, you might need 2 hands for this, or 3, or a partner's help in this sense, to make sure that this hose stays up straight. This one's in here fine, and then it also, this end of the hose is in the actual resin itself. Once the vacuum pump gets turned on, it'll start drawing it, and you will be able to see it come through the hose. This is where you need to have another partner available to actually videotape the process overhead of the resin coming in from the right side or your left on the video and working its way through the fiber material all the way up to where the coupler is itself. It's important for you guys to record the time it takes to cross from one side to the other, and then also base that against the actual distance with the ruler, with the tape measure that we've put down next to the material. So now we will actually turn on the vacuum pump and we can watch the entire process happen in real time. You guys should see the same thing when you guys are performing the lab itself. Go forward. So you can see here the epoxy is running through the hose. I'm adjusting where the epoxy is going to start coming out. You can see it there, the mesh material is starting to take it. Alrighty, so just to make this video a little bit quicker, we can see that the actual material is being pulled through the epoxy is being pulled through the fiber material, and we can see its distance that it's ran in the amount of time that we started the vacuum pump. You guys want to stop the actual pump before it gets to the end of the coupler. We just don't want any of the vacuum. We don't want the vacuum pump to pull any of the resin into it. That'll actually damage it. So before the actual resin gets to the end of the fiber, we want to turn off the vacuum pump. More than 4 inches of draw through the actual material should be more than enough to calculate and to or actually record what we need to record for this lab. And then pretty much as of right now, we just need to start disassembling everything and do a cleanup of all of the materials. This fiber itself will actually harden in about 2 to 3 hours, and if it's probably going to end up throwing it away before that. But if any of the students did want to take it, the material will probably be ready by the end of the day they do that lab.